Now, back in my years of running a successful award-winning Bun and Yon gallery, my accountant said to me that I survived through ups and downs in the economy because I diversified, because I was always quick to change, to read what was happening, what the public were responding to, and to make changes quickly and adapt. And that was why I had been able to stay a success when many other businesses that she had worked with had failed during tough times. I was born into the business of arts. My father was an architect, my mother a dress designer. Now, they had not always been successful in those fields. During the Great Depression, there was no work for my father as an architect. It was a case of change or go down. During the war period, again, there was not a great deal of demand for a dress designer. There was, however, a great deal of demand for somebody who could oversee the production of military uniforms, and my mother was not too proud to take on the commission of overseeing the production of Australia's military uniforms during World War II. And it was very quick to get straight back into dress design and the new vogue, that wonderful clothing that came out post-war. And then, as I said, I was a teenager in the 1960s. She was very quick to adapt to allowing me to take over into the creation of the designs that she did the block patterns for, so that she went from being a successful dress designer in the 20s, 1930s, right through until that she was still there, coming out of the prim and proper 1950s Peter Pan collar and ladylike dresses of the 1950s into the new generation in the 1960s. And she was highly successful as a dress designer then because she adapted and changed. And I was born into that culture of seeing how creative people need to work very hard, and they need to be in touch with what the public are doing and wanting, and they need to keep in training all their life. Training goes on all the time. You never stop learning. You never stop observing and seeing a need, a niche, and filling it. And that's been why I've been successful in art. Do what you do best and let the others do the rest. Just because something works doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do it. It's a case of finding that balance between what you're going to be good at and focus on that you can see that works. Now, but I do learn and I do adapt. And as I said, you got to stay true to yourself and take your time, watch, learn and observe, study what's working, and you can succeed like that. Here I am in my 70s and I've succeeded by being me, and you can succeed by being you. The thing is consistency and adapting, and it's not always adapting to what the public wants. Sometimes it's adapting to the kicks that come your way. Now, look, don't envy people. It's so easy to do. I've been guilty of it myself. You start on YouTube, you're a beginner, and you have a look at what's working for people. You see somebody up there and they've got close to 1 million subscribers. They're on Patreon and they look like they're romping in thousands of dollars a week on Patreon, are they? And you start envying them. And then you start looking, you might follow them, and you find out they've got some terrible thing happening in their life. Look, don't envy people. We're all got the same amount of hours in a day. We've all got 24 hours in a day. It's what we do with them. It's a case of adapting. Now, taking an opportunity and using that opportunity. And and that's really going to work. And then I will do a lot more, I hope, time-lapse video demonstrations, which I can put on YouTube for you. And I'll try to do a lot more talking about how to be a successful artist, because I know that that's what a lot of you want. Whether it's an artist or a writer or a small business person, it doesn't matter. We're all applying the same information. It's doing what you do best and letting the others do the rest. Certainly study what they're doing, look at what they're doing, take from them the best parts of their advice that you can apply to you, that will work for you. That's called being an eclectic learner. That's not taking everything that they do and applying it to you. That's what one of my art teachers taught me. Become an eclectic learning painter. You are not trying to steal and copy another artist. You are studying what another artist does. You're practicing what they do, not copying them. You're practicing, learning, and you're learning from another artist and that artist there, and you're learning from the very best in the profession. And then you're adapting all those things that you learn and using what works for you, or in my case, what works for the subject, because I don't go out and try to paint anything in a style. I look at a subject, and that subject tells me how it needs to be painted. And I'm not consciously trying to impose my will on something. I'm just painting it. It's just coming to me how to paint that. And that's becoming an eclectic learner, learning from everything, learning from the best. Self-taught artists had a fall for a teacher. They either aren't crediting the people that they've gained knowledge from, or they're a fool. You learn. If you don't learn, you're a fool. So don't brag about being a self-taught anything. You are learning from the best that you can get knowledge from, and applying it, and certainly self-guided teaching. That's fine. Self-guided learning, that's desirable. That's wonderful. You're not necessarily having to go to school to learn. You're learning from the experts, and they may or may not be in the schools. They're most likely they're not. But you're learning from the experts and applying it to yourself and taking the knocks and turning them into opportunities. That I was doing, that was why I became a successful artist. It wasn't because I was a highly talented painter. God, I have met artists who had more talent in their little finger than I've got in my whole body, and they gave up painting. We all know that. We all know people like that. Brilliant people. To be successful in anything, particularly in the arts, because art is a non-essential commodity, so it's a lot harder to earn your living at something that's non-essential. A lot easier to earn your living selling food or an essential service, obviously. So if you're chosen to sell or earn your living at a non-essential commodity, you have to work a lot harder at it. So that's something to get your head around right at the beginning. If it takes an average of 60 hours a week for a small business person to succeed after maybe sticking at something for about 3 years and learning, you've got to understand that you want to be an artist. If you want to be a professional artist, you're going to have to work harder than that. And I must admit, I've worked 100 hours a week through my career at times when I was doing art exhibitions, 12-hour shift art exhibitions leading up to Christmas, with a couple of hours beforehand and afterwards in the packing up and cleaning and maintenance, and doing that 7 days a week in the lead up to Christmas. Phenomenal hours, I can tell you. But, that was what was needed. That was what was needed. You do what was needed, and it's not really a profession where you can afford to employ a lot of people to do stuff for you, although I did reach the stage of being able to have a studio assistant, which was greatly beneficial, and they helped me in the studio, in the home, and also at art exhibitions with the customers. And my husband was just always been marvellous, been my partner right throughout, and I could not have done it without him. So it's a very demanding profession, but if you go into it knowing that and you go into it with a passion and a love, you can succeed at it. I'm talking, of course, my experience in exhibiting directly to the public. A lot of work is online these days, but if you're doing fine art, you really need to get out there with the public. Because fine art, you can't tell the difference between a Chinese mass-produced painting up, not knocking the Chinese. I'm just saying that there are factory sweatshops in a lot of Asian countries where the paintings are just produced en masse, screen printed and then touched up. And they cost about $3 each to produce. People buy them wholesale for a few dollars, and then they bring them out to their other country and put a few brush strokes on them and then go and sell them as their own work at markets. And yeah, there's a lot of con art about. There's a lot of con art, and you're competing with that if you're trying to sell fine art online, and you can't very easily. You really can't. A lot of stuff that's sold online in higher price brackets are sold by shill bidding type situations where people are bidding on them themselves, and a case of you can fool some of the people some of the time. And so if you constantly put a painting up and you keep bidding it on yourself, eventually you'll get somebody who'll come along and place a bid too. So you're wanting to sell that sort of quality art, you're much better doing it person to person in galleries, at art shows, art booths, travel around the country like I do, put up your own marquees and stage art exhibitions, and it's a lot of fun, a lot of hard work. But the public like to meet the artist. If you're selling that standard of work, that's what I recommend doing, getting out there and meeting the people. That's what I've retired from. That's why I'm here on YouTube. That's why I'm going to teach online. I've always loved my face-to-face teaching, and I'm actually going to bring a little bit of that into my online. My A Brush with Nature Studio members are going to get face-to-face conferencing with me. They're going to get one-on-one constructive critiquing of their work. I'm not going to do your average type of online class. Again, do what you do best and let the others do the rest. As I've been chatting to you about becoming a successful artist through a willingness to learn, a preparedness to change, and becoming the best that you can be, doing what you do best and letting the others do the rest, I've also been working up these paintings that I painted in the Pilbara of Western Australia during one of my Australian painting tours. Many of them only needed signing and a few brush strokes or pen marks to complete them. Others I've decided need a lot more work, mainly putting some foreground interest, and I'll be going through each one and showing you what I've decided to do. Now this one I felt needed brightening, and I'm going to use some brilliant Australian rosellas, perhaps putting one in the foreground in a shrub and having it in focus, and then a few flying through the air out of focus and showing movement. I think that will look really nice in that painting, so that will be a future demonstration I'll do. I'm looking forward to that. This being a water one, if you have a close look, you'll see there already are 3 birds in the sky, and there is an egret off to the side by that big tree, and I'll put one in the foreground. I love the fact that this is a night view of the egret, and I'll probably paint a night view of it as well, but it will work beautifully in the shallows in this painting. This one, I thought another type of Australian parakeet would look really nice. The colours are also in the painting. There's a little bit of blue violets in the painting, which are in the shadows of the bird, and then the yellow greens there in the painting, and that splash of bright orangey red from the beak. That will look terrific. I'm looking forward to doing this one. And again, picking up the colours that are already in the painting, but not using that bright green foliage that the bird's landing on. We'll need to change that to complement the painting. But I think that this will look really good, that particular bird with this scene, that work online. Mass-produced art being sold as fine art is unethical. Shill bidding is illegal and unethical. Don't go into any of those. Try to sell through reputable means. Many artists who have sold in galleries and built a name for themselves are building successful online sales channels through their own websites. I'm doing my art gallery through my own website. And there are many ethical places that you can purchase work online, but you need to be very careful where you do put your work and try not to sell alongside shill binners, because you just haven't got a hope of competing with the unethical people. I have loved this work. This work didn't need any birds in it. It was just right. I've turned it into designer giftware and decor, as well as having the original for sale.